All right. Good.
Jay.
Jay Kirk? Okay.
I think I met you. I know I met you, but it's been a little while. I'm one of those.
Oh. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
I know what you've been through.
Yeah.
Good to see
Yeah.
you here.
The place is for
Jay
men.
Kirk.
Yeah.
Jay's our new appointee.
I replaced you on the pension
Okay.
way back. I've been about 6 or 7 years.
You still on it?
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I really did.
We've really come a long way. Good to see you back.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do, right here. Excellent. Yes, sir. Thank you. Jay, good to see you. That's right here. Yes, sir. Right here. Yeah, well, we swapped you with Larry because he can read that. Yes, sir. Oh, no, I did skip school this morning. Silly. How are you? Good. This is a good problem, I guess. How you feeling? Yeah. Months ago? No. Hasn't been that long, has it? Is it really? Golly. Tim both. Yep, Larry had a triple bypass 2 weeks ago.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I think getting on this board has some issues. We might ought to get off.
Yeah. Don't kid. If you two guys just kind of
You got to.
that way a little bit with me and Jay, we appreciate that.
So you're looking good. Oh. Both those. Hey, sister. I'm doing pretty good. It's good to be here. Thanks.
How are you again?
Great. Good to see you.
Is this your first meeting?
Second.
What are you up to, stranger? My wife is in the bright orange deal back there. She's the one from Fort Smith. Oh, you met her? Okay.
Tim,
Yep. Good to see you.
good to see you. Glad you're here, man.
I'm here. I'm glad.
You've been good. You'll get there.
I just want to ask if you were up for give us a little update on everything with the Rotary next month. We actually have some others.
That's why I told you. I said, I'll make sure it's okay.
And Wes,
He said, I thought you could speak this summer, Sarah. I said,
I hope he could be there. It'd be great if he could. If you have time.
all right. Oh,
Good to see you. Good to see you, David. But I'll get with you.
Good afternoon. That's what I always say. No, I don't cover.
Me, I have the speakers for next month.
All right, so where am I?
I don't know.
Chris is out, so I guess I'm right here.
Why don't you sit here, because I'm going to slide the gavel.
Okay. Norma?
Hey, girl.
Since Chris
I'm
isn't
glad
here,
to
I'm
see
going to slide
you.
over here. Next, is that okay?
Yeah.
We need to switch our names. Is this for me
I
to
have
sign?
it
Yes, sir. And I wanted to make a quick point.
Okay. Oh, and I need to show you something. Whenever you get, go ahead with yours.
Okay, so the number 2 and number 9, we need to just a motion to remove from the table because we had made a motion to table it.
Okay.
At the last meeting, so they just need to read it.
Okay, so,
Number 2.
yeah, and then this will be Tim, and anticipate
Right.
if that's going to change.
Right.
Hey, good to see you.
We probably,
Just going
he's got it.
It should probably be on his second,
appreciate
that second sheet.
That's it.
Thank you.
All right, right here, when you get to this part right here, we need to remove this from the table. We need a motion to remove the appointment of officers from the table. We tabled it last time.
Oh,
So it's just somebody. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll be happy to do it.
And you,
I was in a.
Oh, did you really? How'd that go?
Okay, okay.
Really?
Okay.
I'm gonna remind him if I send him an email after this meeting.
No, like I said, I'm serious. I don't think I
there you go.
you're so good to see.
Yeah, we've got everything.
You don't know how good it feels to see everybody. Good, good. It's just a matter of another 4 or 5 weeks of physical therapy.
Physical therapy.
Yeah, but they expect me to walk out of the deal.
That's great. I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything you need.
So all you gotta do.
Yeah, it's not the country club and have some steak for lunch.
Not sure it gets better.
Those are the things.
Sounds like a good idea. That sounds nasty.
Wes is going to go do the invocation.
Was he here? Oh, there he is.
2 o'clock, and I call to order the Destin Development Corporation Board of Directors meeting. Wes, would you give us our invocation this?
My pleasure, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I just want to say, so good to see Mr. Tim Edgman here today, and so thankful you're with us. And just want to add that to my thanks to the Lord today, and just want to express that personally. So thank you. Pray with me, please. Lord God in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to meet. Pray for this board, and we do again say thank you for Mr. Tim Edgman being with us today and for your progress in his life and the healing process throughout this time. Lord, we also thank you for the others on the board that are all going through their own challenges we all face every day. We just pray for your guidance and direction through that, through our health. Keep us healthy as individuals, but also as a board and as a community for what we know is best for our city. We thank you for the opportunity to serve here, Lord, and we pray for your guidance and direction in each one of these board members' lives and as their role on this board. Again, we just thank you for the opportunity to serve. Pray for your guidance and direction and ask forgiveness where we failed you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Wes. My understanding is at the last meeting, we tabled the appointment of officers. I need a motion to take that off the table or put it back on.
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second?
Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. I'm not sure exactly how we want to do this, but I would like to put a slate of names as David Boutin as president and Melanie Holman as vice president and Chris Cole as Chris Crow, get those mixed up, as assistant secretary.
We get that a lot. It looks much alike.
The situation I'm in now, I'm going to stay on the board, but I'm not going to be able to handle those presidents, so we need to make that change. So if I could have a motion.
So moved. Second.
So moved second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Mr. Boutin, you are now officially the president, and this meeting is now under your control.
Not sure should be saying thank you, but
Payback's happening.
I don't know what I did to deserve this. I thought Tim and I were friends. I would like to say that I think this is one of the most rewarding boards that I've ever served on with regard to the good that we've been able to do on behalf of the community. I think that we've, over the years, have had lots and lots of good folks sit in these seats. And we've had a community that supported the Odessa Development Corporation wholeheartedly, and therefore we've been able to create a lot of capital investment and creation of a lot of jobs as well. So thank you for your confidence, and we'll go ahead and go on with the meeting. The next item on the agenda is consider the minutes, and I know it's surprising, but I have a couple of items in the minutes. There are a couple of typos, and if it's okay, they're not material, and I would just like to pass those along to Norma. But there's on page 3 of the minutes, that's a long paragraph at the top, and in the middle of that it says Mr. Cole stated that it would uncommingle the accounts. I don't really remember him saying that, and again, I think it probably was up for debate at that time. So, do you recall, Melanie, or Chris, or any of you? It says she asked if separate accounts would solve the issue. Mr. Cole stated that it would uncommingle the account.
I thought it was Mr. Crow that stated that.
So maybe that's the.
Could be.
I think that's probably correct.
Is that strong, maybe?
So
I don't know if you use the word uncommingle,
I
but
don't think it was uncommingled.
but I think that you
I guess I think
responded.
They make it more transparent.
Okay, so if we'll, I think I'd like to propose that that we change that at the bottom of that page, where that resolution on the West Texas Food Bank, that we didn't finish that sentence, and I think it was recommended to go ahead and pay whatever the amount was that we're considering. So I think that's what we need to fill in the blank there, because when you go to the top of the next page, it's not there. So that's that $558,075. I think that's what should be filled in there.
Recommended you move it over for the trucking trailer.
Yep. And then on page 4, towards the bottom, it says Ms. Brooks would send a letter to the grantees notifying each of the change to the agreement. Well, I think what we would be more accurate to say, because I think it's important that we're trying to demonstrate we're changing the agreement going forward. But in addition to that, we are notifying our existing grantees that the definition of compensation is this. So going forward, when they provide us the information, that they should. So I would like that sentence to say, Ms. Brooks would send a letter to the existing grantees notifying each of the clarification of the term compensation. And I think that more accurately demonstrates what we were trying to make sure we were doing. I have no other comments or corrections. Does anyone else have any thoughts? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve as amended.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda are the contractors' reports, and I believe Tom Mansky will be giving the report for the Economic Development Department of the Chamber.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's a pleasure to be here. You'll see our report in your packet. I'm not going to go through everything. Some of these items are just really they've been in the packet for a little while. Just go over some activities. I'll mention 2 new projects that we're working on that kick the packet off. Is Project Frost. You'll see their numbers on there. It's not Frost, is a pretty good sized project. It's got a good CapEx on it of 300 to 350 million. create 15 to 30 new jobs. It is an existing business, and it would retain 105 current jobs. And then the next one is a smaller one, Project Circular, and you can read that. I will mention that Taylor Sudden Services and Roads USA are reviewing their contracts right now. I ran into Rhodes, a representative of theirs, earlier today, and we'll be meeting with them the week after next. I think they had a couple of questions, so we'll see if we can take care of that and get that finalized. Some recent activities that we've had the last month. I attended Next Move Group Site Selectors Conference in New Orleans. We derived 34 new contacts and site selector contacts from that meeting. Tracy attended Site Selectors Guild Annual Conference in San Diego. That was a much bigger conference, and she, and I don't know why she went to a nicer place than I did, but she was able to get 67 new contacts for that. We're putting our system. The 1st of March I went to, I was kind of summoned, both myself and the CEO of Nacero, to Austin to attend a press conference where the governor received the Site Selection Magazine Governor's Cup for like the 12th out of the last, or no, the 11th out of the last 12 years, something like that. And that's where they award the cup to the governor of the state that's had the best year economically with announcements. I think all the projects that were in attendance there all had an announcement last year that had a B in the dollar amount, as in billion. And I don't know why I was there. I didn't have anything to do with it, but it was just kind of nice to be there. Did get good FaceTime with the CEO of Nacero at that event, Mr. Jay McKenna. So that was very good. And he's very pleased with Odessa and Ector County and everything, the investment and how they've been treated coming into this project. So that's a good thing. Couple other things we'll work on. Our reports are getting ready to drastically change for y'all. Just in talking, I've been going around meeting with board members. I haven't met with everybody yet, but I think I've met with pretty much everybody. Finding out what you want, what your interests are, their changes. Now's a good time because I'm new. I've been looking at, well, our staff, the whole team has, we've been looking at new CRM programs. We actually think yesterday we found one. That's a customer relations management program. And a lot of them are just people that have taken Salesforce and kind of stuffed the project into it. They stuffed some economic development into a Salesforce package. Well, we ran into one yesterday specifically designed for economic development organizations. And it basically turns every contact we get, every touch, whether it's a phone call, you bump into somebody, whatever, into a project, and it allows us to track it from the very beginning to, it may stop at step 1 or it may go all the way to, we're offering incentives, they're filling out applications and doing the whole 9 yards all through that. And then we can present a report that gives you every single touch we make between board meetings, so you know exactly, how busy we are. And I know some of you have wanted to see that, see how active the requests are and things, people walking in the door, the calls, who we're reaching out to, things of that nature. So we'll be able to do a much better job because of this service. We also upgraded our subscription to Loopnet and Costar. And those of you that have anything to do with real estate or familiar with them, that's going to better let us track available properties in the area. Pretty much any economic development organization in the country struggles keeping track of whether it's lease space for sale, land, existing buildings. The reason being is trying to do that through realtors. They work on commission. They don't work for us, and trying to get some time out of them to give us their information. And then sometimes they think, well, maybe we're trying to take a sale from them. We're unpaid real estate people, really, in economic development. But this new opportunity with Loopnet and Costar, they're going to automatically keep track of that. We can run reports on rates, whether it's industrial, commercial, retail, the whole 9 yards. And we can actually find out in some areas of the country where manufacturing leases are coming up. And those can be people that we can actually approach about a much better location in a great state of Texas. And so we're pretty excited about the opportunities there. I just wanted to share that with you. And I I hope our new chair doesn't mind me mentioning. I know we've got to get together and discuss a schedule with it, but some of the things talking to board members, I think one thing and if you weren't aware that you're required to go through it, I'll make you aware. We're going to have a sales tax workshop, and we'll have a representative come in. That's usually probably about a half day. It's a good workshop. If you're sitting here new, Dr. Kirk, and you're like, I don't know who can we give? What do we do? How do we do? The sales tax workshop explains all of that, because there's a lot of legal issues involved in economic development organizations in Texas, and the workshop will do that. And we probably want to tie that in with a board retreat, discuss some things I've heard from board members on 50,000-foot issues. We probably can't discuss in board meetings, but we can get together and retreat and kind of go over how this is some directions I'd like to see us look at and go in down the road in the future. And I think it'd be a good idea. Plus, it gets you working together and a little bit more cohesive as a team. I think a half day or a 3/4 day retreat tied in with the workshop possibly a day before is a good idea. I know talking with David yesterday, he agreed. I hope he still does. So we're trying to see if we can get a date that works for people and move forward with that. And I think that's really everything else is in front of you. I'm not going to go through the visits. We're going to give you greater detail on stuff like that once we get our CRM up in place. Hopefully we'll have something. I think we found the company we want to use, and we're maybe we'll have our new report at our April meeting. So.
Tom,
Yes, sir.
The relationship management software that you're talking about would differentiate, I would think, between how that contact was made, somebody coming to your office, a telephone call you placed, a telephone call that came in.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Yes.
Going out to visit a prospect at their place of business and whatnot. And so you can, we could determine maybe what's the most fruitful way that we're able to get good leads.
I'm sure you can, it'll show you, we can do the report that'll show you from our outgoing efforts, but it also shows you as to what's coming in and how we address that, whether it's email, phone call, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Do you remember the name of the CRM program, out of curiosity?
I'd tell you, but I'd have to. Well, the one that I like a lot, I'm leaning forward, I think our team likes, is it's called EDOIQ. And as you can tell by the acronym, it's specifically for economic development. Matter of fact, I think the person that gave them the outline as far as what the software people put together is a gentleman up in North Texas who's kind of considered a guru. He's retired now, but well, he ran Frisco for over 2 decades, and you've seen what's happened in Frisco. So,
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any questions, comments? Thank you,
Okay.
Tom.
Thank you very much.
Craig, CVA.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are y'all? Mr. Chairman, it's a pleasure to see you back. Hope you're feeling much better and making progress, Tim. You have my report. I'm just going to touch on a couple highlights of it. We're continuing with our television package on the golf channels, or golf programming, I should say, and also our outdoor advertising. But we are in the process of updating the outdoor billboards and also newspaper ads to freshen up that creative. And Mr. Mansky has had a look at the first glance at that, and we're working on refining that and improving upon it. He mentioned the Governor's Cup that Texas won again, and so we're going to have an ad in the Site Selection magazine that honors that. Half-page ad. It's in your report, so you'll be able to take a look at that. So we're excited about that. Social media for the month was up slightly, not greatly, but slightly. But I do want to mention also that as a result of Mr. Crow's inquiry at our last meeting, we've dug a little bit deeper into being able to mine databases and talk to the people that we want to talk to, and do it in a way that is legally safe with privacy laws and things like that. So we've had a real good discussion with Mr. Cole. He had us talk with some people that he knew. We also I've had phone calls and meetings with Ms. Jones and also Mr. Mansky with the chamber, and trying to solidify everything that we want to go after in terms of mining that database and building that database. So I just wanted to report that we are making progress on that.
Cool.
Any other questions that y'all might have? I'd be more than happy to answer. Yes, Larry.
Too, when Chris was talking last month, you were talking at the end, you said a percentage, the number were bots. I don't know if you
Yes.
number that percentage or?
We've seen numbers as high as 95% that are bot inquiries. Yeah.
When you extrapolate that into, you know, the social media.
Exactly.
Where are we at then?
Yeah.
Another thing, and I may be, you know, there's a few things that need updated on the website. I don't know who does that. I mean, we still have 17 Perryman report, 18 another report. And
Right.
There's nothing.
We do make those updates. In fact, we made one just recently with Mr. Mansky replacing Wes's information. But we'll review it and see what needs to be updated on it.
You think anything's gonna pick up the social media traffic? I mean, I looked at Motran and theirs by the quarter is, you know, like 10 times a month. what
Right.
ours is. So
Right.
with a much smaller budget. So,
Right.
is there, you know, something we might do there?
Well, I think we have had those discussions, like I was talking about building that database. Right now, the newsletter has about 1,800 people receiving it. But we aren't able to push out to them marketing messages. We're going to make a modification in the terminology to those people that will allow us to market back out to them.
That's the spotlight of that newsletter?
Yes, sir, it is.
Because it's dated too.
Yeah.
It's rather dated, I think.
Yeah.
Several years old.
Well, actually, no, I'm talking about the monthly report that Kathy Vaughn sends out with all the latest economic development information. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, you bet. Glad to answer it. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Chris?
Good evening to the board. New president, Mr. Edgman, good to have you back.
Thank you.
You are in all of our prayers.
Don't stop.
Oh, we won't.
Any of you?
I'm not gonna take much of your time up. A lot of this stuff is repetitious, but I did want to highlight that last month we did a digital display of our local heroes for the month of February. This was something that had never been done. We featured a different person each day. The feedback we got on this was phenomenal. This was something we thought just off the cuff that we wanted to do for the month of February, which was Black History Month. We ran a different person each day. The feedback was what we were expecting was nothing but what we received. We're very happy with it. As a matter of fact, we saw some of the results in our membership as well. But we were able to get a history lesson out to a lot of the people in Odessa that didn't know a lot of these local people, local educators, business people that started some of the businesses that are here in Odessa and were never given any type of credit. So we were very happy with that. That went over very well. Like I say, we saw an increase in our membership. We also saw an increase in our social media, and we credited this to our display for the last month. So we hope this is something that will continue. We hope this will carry over and help us increase our numbers. Once again, we're going to have, for anybody that knows a family that's in need, on the Friday 11th, which is tomorrow, at our church at St. James Baptist Church, in partnership with the Black Chamber, we will have food boxes for families that are still struggling and that are still looking for help and not, looking for assistance. And they're more than welcome to come by. We're in the process of helping and assisting with a local group. We had some areas that were turned into us as eyesores, something that we could help with. And as a chamber, Black Chamber, we wanted to adopt this area and help this community clean this up. And we wanted to be more visible and more community friendly. This is just something I know a lot of it is out of the realm of scope of what we do, but we want the community to be able to come to us and we want them to know that we're there to help them as far as anybody in the community, anything that they need, or any help they may need. So any questions, comments, requests?
All good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Tyler?
Good afternoon. Yeah, let me just go through the report real quick. Again, you have this in your packet. For the month of February, we had 239 counseling sessions, 197 counseling hours. We had 3 seminars we presented with 41 attendees. Those seminars were, we had one on marketing, another on developing a business plan, and then a third on financial projections. For March, we will have 4 of our own workshops. Those will include fraud prevention, which we've actually already had that one, e-commerce, how to start a business, and then People Fund, access to capital, basically. We're going to have People Fund in from Lubbock, and they will do, I say in, it's going to be virtual, so they'll virtually be in. And then I wanted to bring up that we have another workshop that we're not doing on our own. We're doing this as a partnership with the Office of Innovation and Commercialization at UTPB, as well as Blackstone Launchpad. It's the Intellectual Property Workshop. It'll be on April 1st, basically all day long, kind of an 8:30 to 3 type deal. It's going to be on campus, on the Odessa campus in the Mesa building. And it's going to be in partnership with the State Bar of Texas and the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So we're expecting a good turnout on that. We'll be marketing that to all of our clients, as well as all students, faculty, and basically anybody in the Permian Basin who wants to come to it. There is a $10 charge. We are not charging for it. The USPTO is charging for it, and it's basically for lunch. They find if they don't charge, people RSVP and they order a bunch of lunches and they go to waste. So that's the purpose of it, ultimately. Back to the report, we had 3 new businesses in the area in the last month. Those included a barbershop, an oilfield service company. It's the first one of those in a few months, so that's nice to see. And then a medical office. Total capitalization, $3.5 million for the month, with 17 FTEs. A lot of those coming, obviously, in the oilfield service company. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Those 3 outlined new businesses, where are they? Barbershops?
Well, as the report says, those are throughout our area. I mean, I'm not allowed by SBA rules to identify exactly where they are, other than to say if they're in Odessa or not for these purposes. These 3 were not in Odessa.
And another thing, what type of oilfield service company?
It was like a machine shop type deal. So they're not exclusively oilfield services, but they're mostly going to be oilfield service type deal. So, yep.
Tyler,
Yes, sir.
of all the workshops that you've done over the last many years,
Yes, sir.
could you point to 1 or 2 that have been the best received, or you've had the best attendance or the best response or whatever?
Sure. So since I've been doing this over the few years, frankly, anything related to COVID and disaster funding was by far the most done. Hopefully we'll never have to have those again, but they were. Aside from that, the 2 most popular topics are going to be access to capital, anything to do with getting loans. And secondly, marketing. And again, frankly, any type of marketing, whether it's social media, whether it's a marketing strategy, whatever it is, anything with the term marketing on it or access to capital, we get good turnout.
Okay.
So frankly, if we're doing it on our own, things like intellectual properties, that's a tough one for us. Now, if we start including things like students, faculty, other groups in the community beyond our clients, we get a good turnout. But if it's just our clients, intellectual property, things like that, it's a tough go for us.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Tyler.
All right, thank you.
James, Motran?
You know, at first, whenever you said that this is the most rewarding board you've served on, it kind of hurt me a little bit there, Mr. Boutan. But then I heard about all your corrections to the minutes, and I got over it right quick. So there you go. Just as a note, today the Southwest Airlines direct flight, or the nonstop flight to Austin, started, and things are going well there. You know, we put quite a bit of money into marketing that flight on the front end of that, and I'm happy to tell you that we're turning that campaign over now to the city of Midland and the airport there, who's going to put $100,000 into continuing that promotion of the flight going forward. That's 148 seats on that flight, and it's going to take a lot to keep that healthy and happy. But the good part to that is we very much engaged Southwest Airlines in that process, so they're doing a lot of things out here as well. And one of those is just in the course of this year so far, in the first 2 months of it that we're reporting back on, they've had 2 special direct marketing campaigns for Midland and Odessa flights. And they're going to continue that throughout the course of the year. And if you go back to our original airport surveys that we did, one of the problems that we had, of course, is it's about $309 more to fly out of here than some other airports. So having those lower cost fares is good for consumers, and it also helps the other airlines be a little bit more competitive as well. And so we're hoping that helps in that regard. The other good thing is now that the city is putting in that money, Southwest Airlines, because of the federal law on that, is required to pay those funds back if they pull that flight in less than a year. So we're spreading that out over a year, and hopefully that buys us another year and gives us the time to build that up. The only other thing that I'll add today, in addition to the other stuff that was already in our report, is the answer back to a question from Mrs. Holman last month. We went through the mapping, and what we found is, on a definitive side, about 38 businesses that would not be served at the 55 level, probably about 111 that are not served at the 110 level. And we spent a lot of time going through that to be definitive on those numbers, so I feel good about those numbers. I will tell you, there are 127 businesses along the interstate in Ector County that are not in a very specific service area from the mapping, but all of those businesses are on a long haul fiber cable. And I say that from the perspective that they can all direct access that. It's a little bit more expensive, but in the case of those businesses, the size of those businesses, it's probably wouldn't be any more than what they would normally have. So the number of those businesses, again, very, very small, probably about 38 for the 55, and then again 111 for the 110.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
James?
Yes.
Just one correction, but don't review the tape. I think I said one of the most rewarding boards.
I'm so sensitive, all I could hear is the one. So there you go.
Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Larry? Financials?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We're presenting information about the January financials today. For the month of January, you see that total assets increased by $805,807, ending with net assets of $61,913,008 as of January 31st. Total revenues year to date were $3,788,711. Total expenditures year to date, you'll see on page 2 of the report, is $912,950. I want to take just a moment and explain that a little bit, because there was an adjustment made back from the beginning of the year when we made 2 contractual payments for a total of a little over $2.2 million that have been adjusted and moved back in to fiscal year 2021. So that increased the expenditure in 2021, reducing the ending fund balance at the end of 21, and of course has recouped that during this time. So that $2.2 million is now being recognized as expense in 2021 rather than 2022, which it had been before this month. So I just want to make sure that that was clear as to why we went from a little over $3 million in expenses down to $912,000.
And that's to correspond with the audit report that you will receive today. They accrued it within the audit report, so we're making it retroactive on our reports as well.
All right. As far as investments for the month, we did not purchase any new investments during January. However, we did purchase some GO bonds, $1 million par of Miami-Dade County, Florida, on February 4th, which matures on July 1st, 2023, and has a yield of 1.3% on those bonds. They will be, of course, reflected on the February report in next month's meeting. As far as sales tax revenues go, very pleased to say that the ODC sales tax collections for March of 2022, just this month, were just received yesterday, and total for the month of March, $829,124.82, which is an increase of $134,462.42, or 19.36% when compared to March of 2021 a year ago. So up almost 20% from year to year. On a fiscal year-to-date basis, the total collected for fiscal year 2022, which is now 6 months, is $5,771,555.26, which is an increase of $780,115.94, or 15.63% when compared to the same 6 months of fiscal year 2021 last year. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to address any questions or.
Anyone have questions? Thank you, Larry.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
Make a motion, we accept the financial report as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to accept the financial report as presented. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, Greg Peterson, or Cindy, you gonna introduce him?
Yes, please. Greg Peterson is a partner, audit partner with the firm of Weaver, and they have completed the draft, and upon y'all's acceptance today, that will be finalized for the 9/30/2021 fiscal year audit. And I will let him go through that and answer any questions that may come about.
Thank you, Cindy. I believe each of you have a copy of the report in front of you. And as I go through this, if y'all have any questions, y'all just yell at me. We'll address it as we go throughout. So again, this is the audited report as of September 30, 2021. And if I can get y'all to turn over to page number 3. So the whole point of an audit is for the auditor to render an opinion on the financial statements. And I am pleased to present, as you can see on page 3, that we are going to issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, saying that these financial statements are materially correct. And this is the highest level of assurance that you can receive in an audit. Next, if I can have you turn over to page number 7. So page 7 begins the management discussion and analysis section of the financial report. What this is kind of a high-level overview that's prepared by management that goes over comparative information, current year to prior year. It just gives a more narrative information about the changes in the operations year over year.
Greg, because we have some new members on the board, we would like to explain a little bit about government-wide financials versus fund financial statements. In the case of ODC, there's really not a difference because we basically have one fund of ODC, which is a general operating fund. Like for instance, in the city of Odessa, we have many funds, And so a government-wide financial statement would make some changes to those governmental and enterprise funds that are reported back in the fund type statements, and they get combined and bring up to more of a business type model for what they call an entity-wide financial statements. There's really no difference with ODC between a fund financial statement and a government-wide. Most of all those transactions are handled just the same. But I did want to point that out for the new members that may not have gone through these reports before.
Yeah, that's the joy of governmental accounting. You get to use two different bases of accounting, so modified and full accrual. So the fortunate thing is there's no difference in the way that these financial statements are prepared. That's there's no long-term assets that are missing from these financial statements. There's no long-term debts that would be adjusted going from a modified accrual to a full accrual. So all the activity is the same across both methods. Next, we'll turn to page 17. So because they're similarly reported, I think that the governmental fund presentation shows a little bit more detail. So we'll just go to page 17, where we're going to look at the fund level activity. So as of September 30, ODC had cash and investments of $60.9 million. There were cash and money market mutual funds held that totaled $17.8 million. We had investments and investment pools that totaled $36.6 million, CDs valued at $4.2 million, and municipal securities valued at $2.1 million. So all that combined equals the total on the cash and investments of $60.9 million. There was a receivable balance of approximately $2 million. That is the sales tax receivable for the year ended. We had some prepaid items of about $330,000. And what that is, that's the Q1 payments of next year to Odessa Chamber and Motran. Moving down to the liability section, we have accounts payable of $147,000. That just represents payables to vendors for services that are received by ODC. We have contracts payable of approximately $3 million. That total represents payments on incentives. We have approximately $2.2 million of that is payable to UTPB for their second and third training grants. We have about $558,000 that's represented to West Texas Food Bank, and $226,000 of that total is to Glaziers. Moving down, we have the fund balance section. So this would also refer to as equity, the equity section if we're looking at it for a for-profit entity. So we have a couple of different categories within fund balance. So we have the non-spendable category of $332,000, which represents, that equals the prepaid balance. So basically, since we've already paid the money, this is non-spendable. So it's the cash is already being converted to future services. So that equals the prepaid balance. We have a committed fund balance of $30.3 million. We have a schedule in the back on page 41 that actually details out what makes up this $30.3 million, and we'll get to that in a bit. But just a high level, approximately $20 million of this $30 million balance is Nacero. You have another $5 million to Odessa College for their health science building, and then another $1.5 million to UTBB for some of their training grants. So that's the biggest portion of this $30 million is for those three different contracts. Next, you have an assigned fund balance, and that is comprised of $9 million for TxDOT projects and $4.9 million for Odessa housing initiatives. Then you have the remaining unassigned fund balance. So this is fund balance that essentially hasn't either been committed for an incentive contract or assigned for a TxDOT project or housing. So it's available for future uses. Next, we'll turn to page 18. So now we're looking at the income statement side. We have total revenues of $10.7 million. Approximately 10.6 of that is from the quarter-cent sales tax that the ODC receives. We have total expenditures of $6 million, about $6.1 million. You can see we have service expense of $1.4 million. That's comprised mainly of a $900,000 of expenses to the Odessa Chamber, and then the city also receives about $200,000 for administrative and management costs. There's a marketing expense of $879,000, primarily to CVA. ODC signs an annual contract with them. The one for 2021 was not to exceed $894,000, so they came under the amount agreed to in the contract. We have total incentives of $3.78 million, so these are incentives that have been earned during the year. Of that amount, we have $1.5 million to UTPB for the training grant number 2, $700,000 for training grant number 3. West Texas Food Bank was approximately $704,000 in total, and then we have Apergy at $400,000. Again, we have a schedule in the back on page 40 that breaks out this total 3.7 by actual pay by awardee. So we'll get to that towards the end. Next, we'll turn to page 19. Page 19 begins the notes section to the financial statements. So there's several pages of notes here that just goes into greater detail of ODC's accounting policies, gives a little bit more context behind some of the information, some of the balances that are presented in the statements that we just went over. But nothing in particular there. If we go to page 24, so this is just the detail of all the investments that are being held by ODC, what their percentage weight is of the total portfolio, and the weighted average maturity of those investments. Page 26, note number 7. Commitments just goes over the various contracts that ODC has with their service providers. And then continuing on to, we're going to flip quite a few pages now. We're going to go all the way back to page 40. As I'd mentioned earlier, there was a couple of detailed schedules that broke out the exact incentives that were earned during the year. This section, you can see where we have, starting with incentives earned, West Texas Food Bank, $704,000. So this total, for the total amount earned as of 9/30/21, the $3.7 million, that agrees back to the expenses that you see on the income statement for incentive expenses. So those two numbers reconcile back and forth. And then on page 41, when we're talking about committed fund balance, this schedule details out all the contracts that have been committed that are represented in that committed fund balance on page 17. Next, on page 45. So since we conduct this audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, we also do it in accordance with government auditing standards, which requires that we evaluate ODC's internal controls and that we also test for compliance with laws and regulations. As part of that audit, we did not identify any weaknesses in internal controls or any non-compliance with laws and regulations. That kind of reaches the end of my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Any questions, comments? I would entertain a motion to approve the audit.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the audit as presented. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Casey, request from Icon Tavern.
Good afternoon, Board. I'm here on behalf of Sean Rodriguez. He's also here if you want to speak with him. But on June 21st of 2021, Icon Tavern Sports and Entertainment entered into an infrastructure and facade grant economic development agreement with ODC in the amount of $145,685 with 26 cents and 25,000 respectively. The deadline for completion on each grant was no later than 12 months from the effective date of the agreement. Due to problems outside of the company's control, construction has been delayed, and the company is here requesting a 90-day extension to complete the projects.
The only question I had was, the 12-month period is standard in all of our agreements. So my question is, these are kind of extraordinary times, and I know we want to make sure this gets done and moves along, but is 90 days enough time?
In speaking with Mr. Rodriguez, I think I'll let him, if you don't mind, speak.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The 90 days is in addition to the deadline of June 21st. We should start production on Monday. We've got rollout trash trailers already ready to go as far as to start construction on this. We should get pretty close by the 21st of June, but we just want to make sure that we have the adequate amount of time in case there's a delay in equipment, materials, and so forth. So it's 90 days additional to the June 21st timeframe. That should be more than enough time for us to have everything done. We actually plan on being open before the NFL football season. Yeah. So we definitely are shooting for that deadline. We've had quite a few delays, of course. Sure. The very first one, losing my brother to COVID, June 29th of 2020. Of course, COVID itself has delayed it quite a bit. We've had some contractor issues, things like that. I guess, parted ways with our original contractor, and we hired Part2 Designs to do our work, which is two doors down from our tavern. So he's a lot more accessible, a lot faster. I think we'll be able to get things done in a much quicker fashion. But we're just asking for 90 days on top of that. Now, if there's any additional time, we just want to make sure that we have that allotted time to be able to finish within that time frame. I think we'll be personally pretty close by that June 21st deadline, but we just want to make sure, kind of keep all of our ducks in a row.
Well, on behalf of the board, I appreciate you trying to get out in front of this just to make sure that there's no gaps. Does anybody else have any issues or questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I would entertain a motion to approve the extension.
David, I would motion we actually extend just to make it easy to September 30 deadline. Would that be okay? And that's like 9 more days, but I think it would make calendaring a little easier.
Have a motion to extend it to September 30.
Second.
Have a second. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Casey. Okay, Melanie, the downtown grants policy.
Casey, you want to come back up?
Yeah. So sensuous.
Melanie, I know that the legal department had sent over the packet that you guys have. I did have two corrections. On page 3, under Article 3 of 3.1, under that point 3, the second one, expansion projects for businesses that have operated continuously for at least 3 years. I wanted to change that to say expansion projects for businesses that applicant has operated continuously for at least 3 years. I want to make sure that there's not that hole where if we have Olive Garden want to come downtown and someone just bought it, but that business has been in business for several years, under new ownership, with the current wording, they would be allowed to, and I think that's what we were trying to avoid by changing that. So the same thing for the one right beneath it. New locations of existing businesses that have operated, we would want to change that to applicant has operated continuously.
I agree with that. I think that captures what Mr. Russell and I had talked about when making these changes, and then what we discussed in our
Yes. So I spoke with legal. Those were the only two after going over everything else, I think it looks great. It really exemplifies what we had spoke about in the meeting, so.
Do any of the other board members have questions about these changes?
I do have one question about the document. Exhibit B wasn't included in our packet, which is the list, I guess, additional
The course,
seminars?
the course seminar list that we talked about, we have not, I think that, I'm trying to remember where we left that in the meeting, that we were going to be getting a list from
Right,
Tyler.
right, from the Small Business Development. And I know that in this, I need to find where it says it exactly, but it does, I know you wanted at least those two specifics.
Yes.
So those were listed in this document, and then it says anything from the attached list, but we don't have the list.
What we talked about in the meeting, and what we had talked about in a prior board meeting, was maybe having just 3 required seminars. We wanted them to be required to do one of the seminars in financial literacy, one of them in marketing to support the business downtown. And then the third, we wanted to let them choose from basically a list of a variety of options. Excuse me. So
What was their time frame to complete those? Do we
they
count
have
the
the
time frame?
entire time between when they apply for the grant and when they complete.
Excellent.
They just have to complete it before they seek reimbursement. So it doesn't delay their application.
Excellent.
It runs concurrently. But I think in our minds, that Exhibit B list would be something that would be subject to change based on what was being offered
Correct.
at the SBDC. So it's basically just going to be kind of a list of their seminars.
For sure, something on financial
But
literacy,
for sure,
on
something
marketing.
financial literacy and something marketing.
Well, okay, so rather than having Exhibit B, could we state it that it's any of the additional business courses that are taught at the SBDC?
I think we'd like to have a list provided for them just to make it easier, but perhaps instead of it
I'm
being
just
an
thinking if
exhibit to
it's-
the agreement, we say, chosen from the list provided at the time of
By
application.
my office.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do that.
Yeah,
That
I
way
think-
there's some more flexibility
Right,
there.
yeah, absolutely. And then my office will just make sure that we are working with Tyler to keep an updated list, and anybody that comes in, we'll make sure to present that to them.
But our hope, and what we talked about, was that at least having these 3 required seminars, that if there is expense for that we cover, that these new business owners will see that there's a resource where they can have access to knowledge and business education to hopefully help these businesses thrive.
Secures our investment.
Yep.
I like it.
Okay.
I would entertain a motion to approve the changes.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the changes as corrected or amended per this conversation. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Board.
Casey. Okay, next item on the agenda, discuss and consider potential ODC checking account. This obviously was a topic of our discussion last meeting. And just to kind of recap, one of the things that, when I first talked to Chris about this prior to that meeting, I was kind of under the same impression that it didn't make a lot of sense for us not to have our own checking account. But following the explanation by Cindy and Larry with regard to that, I can't see a reason for us to do that. And I think the questions that Chris was asking were, is this, are these funds commingled? and is there transparency? Well, in my mind, the first item, are they commingled? Well, basically, when an expense comes to ODC, it's paid by the city of Odessa. And then if it's approved, then it's transferred out of our funds, which is in effect our bank account. So I think that covers that part of it. The transparency part of it is that we are audited. We get financials every month. We can ask any questions that we want to with regard to any expense. Because the same auditor audits the ODC that audits the city, I think that's good, because I think any of those transactions that end up in the wrong fund or charged to the wrong fund can be caught easier by the same auditor. It can be adjusted much easier. And I think the other thing that we can't lose sight of is that the Odessa Development Corporation is subservient to the city of Odessa. That's the way it was created. Everything that we do has to be approved by the city of Odessa. So, in my mind, I think what's happening serves the purpose of all the questions, certainly that you raised, Chris. I believe that it does. But I would open it up for any other comments from anyone else regarding whether or not we need to have our own bank account.
I have a quick question. On the city of Odessa checks, they're coded, of course, and that comes back to us.
Well, Cindy, would you explain the detail on exactly how it works logistically?
When an expenditure is entered into the system, it's coded by a fund and an account number. And all of the ODC expenditures have their own specific account numbers, as does our water sewer fund, our trash fund, our grants. We have special grant funds, our general fund. They all have different streams of account numbers. And so if it's through a contract that's approved, which is a lot of the expenditures for ODC, those accounts are pre-populated with that contract. So when a payment comes due on that contract, the payment authorization is done, it's entered under that account, it's sent for approval, and then the check is processed, and it's processed through our accounts payable system. The accounts are already are established, and as the payment authorization or the invoice on a PO, for instance, like we do with CVA, those account numbers are put in, the expenses entered into those account numbers at that time, either as a payment authorization to enter it into accounts payable and to the expense account, or as in the PO, if it's a PO, it's entered into the expense account and to accounts payable. So when the accounts payable system runs through, all the payments are made out of one checking account that is in the city's name, okay? But all the payments have already been coded to the individual fund expense account. And so accounts payable is credited, and then the cash is reflected in the fund that the expense was in. So you just eliminate the accounts payable and it hits the cash account within that fund. And that tracks all of the payments out of that fund. That is why periodically we go in and we transfer money from ODC's text pool account to reimburse their cash account, which is a portion of the pooled cash account, checking account for the city as a whole, that reimburses them for payments made on behalf of ODC.
Cindy,
does that make sense?
What would it take for a miscoding to slip through? What steps what is in there that would catch that?
Well, that's pretty unlikely, because once the expense is entered okay, whether it's through a payment authorization or it's done through the purchase order, then it goes through an approval process, okay? And so that person, and it's someone in finance, will be looking to see, is that the right account number? Okay, we know that this is an ODC payment. Is it an ODC account number? It's very easy for them to tell because of the sequence of the account numbers. So it's there. And so it's very unlikely that that's going to happen. Plus, at the end of the month, when Larry prepares the financial statements, he's reviewing the detail of the accounts in order to prepare the financial statements, so he would have that information. And when he pulls financial statements, he's just pulling the ODC fund. He's not pulling anything else out of the city's accounting system, just that fund.
So it would have to get past a reviewer, and then it would have to get past Larry.
Yes.
And then whenever,
and then the auditors look at it.
Yeah, and then when the transfer's done.
Well, the transfer is basically, and we don't always get it done at the end of every month. It depends on how much, because we do a lot of quarterly payments and once a year payments for ODC. So there's not always a whole lot of monthly transactions, but we will, it's just a matter of transferring out of the text pool account of ODC, and it transfers into the text pool account of the city, which then reimburses our checking account.
And who signs off on that, on the transfer?
It takes two signatures to transfer. Okay. What actually takes 2 transactions through our online with text pool.
Okay.
Out of the finance department.
You said periodically they do transfers from the text pool to the city account. Is that a set periodic, or is it just?
It's just kind of, I mean, we would like for it to be more routine, but there's not a lot of transactions some months for ODC. So we kind of look at the balance. Is it at 20,000? It's not a big deal. So if it gets higher, then we make our transfer. So it's not at a set amount, and it's not at a routine basis.
When you make those transfers, is it, from a set balance, if you've got, $52,492.79, are we doing 52.74, down to the penny, or are we just rounding?
Generally, what we do is at the time we're going to make the transfer, we look at that cash account for ODC and what is it, and so we make the transfer for that amount and transfer it over.
But it's the same amount, we don't round or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you. Let's see. Next item on the agenda is the appointing of ODC board members to committees. At this time, the partnership.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If we can have a motion to remove from the table?
Oh, that's right. You told me to do that, and I forgot. I would entertain a motion to remove from the table the appointment of officers. Appointment of committee and officer reports.
So moved.
Second.
The motion is second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, the partnership. At this time, we have 3 members. And I guess I was a little bit confused in looking at this. Do we have to have 3 members attend partnership meetings?
No, but partnership, you're in charge.
Okay.
Whoever's in charge, is that correct? Where's Renee?
You're saying that
the partnership, isn't the president of the ODC is in charge of that
the
meeting?
chairs the meeting?
Chairs the meeting.
Okay.
What all entities are involved in partnership?
School district, city, hospital district,
Taxing entities?
Odessa College, UTPB. Yeah, it's all taxing entities, but UTPB is involved as well, right?
And they're not.
And OC?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
And it's the executive staff person plus a volunteer, a board member.
Yeah. So they typically have 2.
So you can take my name off and you're set.
I mean, I guess that's where I was headed. I didn't know that we needed 3 people at the meeting. I mean, we all got things to do, but
I volunteered to take my name off too.
No, no, I can't hear you. Well, all right, so I tell you what we ought to do. Let's work through this, and then we'll just approve this all at one time. So let's assume that there's a consensus that Tim comes off. Tax incentive, Melanie and I could stay on that. It only meets once a year. I don't think that's a huge deal. Advertising, we do need another member on that. And does anybody have an interest in serving on the advertising committee?
I'll give these two an opportunity, but if not, I'll do it.
I can.
You wanna put that on his,
We need to get him.
Yeah.
He's gotta be on.
We gotta hook
He's
him,
gotta go
see how
through the
good he
baptism
is.
of fire.
Baptize them by fire.
Yeah.
All right, so let's put Dr. Kirk in there right now. In the downtown, the grants, we've got Larry on there, and we had Jeff. Does someone else want to serve on there with Larry?
At the risk of spreading myself too thin, I did work with Casey on these, and with Jeff on the changes, so I feel like I would be well poised to sit on that committee. But if somebody else wants it, they're more than welcome.
All right.
So, what about putting me on advertising with Chris Cole? And who else do we have? We could have three in that, because that's a
Okay,
item of.
I'm okay with that.
Add Tim
Dr.
on there
Kirk,
with-
Chris, and
Yeah.
Tim. That's a good idea. I like that. All right, so what I'm showing here is partnership would be Melanie and I. Tax incentive would be Melanie and I. Advertising, Tim, Dr. Kirk, and Chris Cole. The downtown grants would be Melanie and Larry Robinson.
Okay.
I'd entertain a motion to approve that as a.
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
Have a motion and a second to make the committee assignments as presented, or as adjusted, if you will. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, are there any citizen comments on non-agenda items at this time? Okay, it looks like there are none, and if none, then we're going to adjourn at 3:10. Thank you all for being here.
I'm a little sad I didn't get to talk to Bradley Marquez.
You what?
I'm a little sad I didn't get to visit with Brad. We should have made Bradley Marquez come in. I would ask him questions about his sound defeat of.
I didn't